Welcome back to the Bluegrass. This beautiful October afternoon. I have a kind of wide-ranging video for you today. I thought you might enjoy seeing how I implement the same system across a wide variety of different breeds and ages. Okay, we're going to start off with Oliver. Oliver is a nice English bred, or what they call showbred, black Labrador Retriever, and we're starting off with Oliver because, in my humble opinion, all dogs want to be labs and all labs want to be black. So this is kind of what my channel is known for. We really like this kind of dog. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a bunch of dogs out from the kennel, and I'm going to work each dog, and I'm going to talk about how each dog is a little bit different in terms of how we approach influencing them. Okay. Now I run a system. Every dog that comes here, we kind of have the same basic general structure for our training program, but we make a lot of adjustments based on the dog's individual breed, its age, its developmental stage, and maybe most importantly, its history. Okay, so now this is an awesome little dog, and even though he's only about, what is he, cameraman, 18 or 19 weeks old? Okay, even though he's only about 18 or 19 weeks old, you can see that his general obedience is top-notch for a dog that age, and that's primarily because he's got a gregarious, outgoing attitude. He loves to eat, he loves attention, and he has a very resilient temperament. That's why we love labs so much. We get tons and tons of labs in, and we send them home happy because they do great in our system. Okay. Now, one of the things that you'll notice with this little dog is that I'm getting quite a bit of work out of him. Without very much in the way of rewards. Okay, for those of you familiar with my channel, you know I kind of run a giant Montessori where I shape the environment and the environment shapes the dogs to a large degree, but the specific skills we teach with simple food work protocols. Okay, so the dog learns to access the food via the indirect action of basic obedience patterns, and then over the course of staying with me for a while, the dog learns to access everything it wants via indirect action sequences. So in other words, this little dog, it likes to eat food, but what it really likes to do is run and play with the other dogs. So it's kind of figured out by now that if it'll just come out and do its formal schoolwork, the basic obedience stuff, then I'll let it off the leash and it'll get to go play and do what it wants to do. Now, that is a strategy, that's a tried and true strategy, and we have done it for years. Up, up, up. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we present obstacles in the dog's life so that we can teach them to be anti-fragile. Okay, that's a concept this guy named Tailor came up with. I'm not just after resilient dogs, okay? I'm not just after a dog that does okay if something bad happens to it. I'm about taking a dog and helping the dog realize its full potential, making it as confident as possible. I want the dog to go out in the world and look for things to do where the possibility of failure is very real, okay? And then if it fails, just gets up and tries again. Okay, that's what I'm really after. I want every dog that leaves here to be as confident as possible. We're gonna bring some dogs out that have some real confidence issues in a minute, and we're gonna talk about how, you know, not having a good basic obedience and socialization system in place when they're young leads to a lot of problems in the mid-adolescent and post-adolescent periods, okay? All right, so this is gonna be our standard. This is what we're gonna judge all the other dogs against. Okay, let me put him up there so you can see him from the side, cameraman. And again, this is Oliver. He is about a 19-week-old show or English style Labrador Retriever. And of course, he's the right color. Okay, now I'm going to start getting other dogs out. And what I want you to do is just kind of watch the dogs, watching the dogs, how they negotiate our obstacle course. That's probably going to be a little bit more important than just listening to what I say, okay? And I'll try to not waste a lot of time with too much talking, but listen to what I say a little bit, but mainly focus on the dogs and how often I have to give them treats, how often I have to give them encouragement, how often they balk and show a lack of confidence, all that kind of stuff. And then post your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll try to answer as to why those particular behaviors pop up or don't pop up. All right, I'll go get us another dog. All right, so I went in the kennel and I got Theo. Theo is Oliver's main running buddy, okay? Theo is a showbred English Springer Spaniel. All right, so what we have here is a showbred English Springer Spaniel and a showbred or English style Labrador Retriever if you're in the States. And they're pretty similar in terms of they both have great attitudes, they both make friends easily, they're both easy to manage, they have moderate energy output levels, they have moderate endurance levels, and they have moderate recharge rates. In other words, when they come out in the morning, like they run around and play a lot, but it doesn't take too awful much exercise to make them tired and help them settle down. And then, like, look, by this time of day, they're usually kind of ready for a nap, and that gives you a lot more free time during the day than if you get the field variety of either of these kinds of dogs. So if you live in the suburbs, I'm always after people to make sure that they communicate to breeders what their actual lifestyle is like. Not the lifestyle they hope to have later once they get the dog, but what their actual lifestyle is like at the time they're thinking about purchasing a dog. Because a lot of people will buy, say, a field version of a Springer Spaniel because they think they're going to have extra time to go hunting or go adventuring, and in reality we never have as much time as we would like. Okay. Now when I'm working a dog like this, come on there, I have to take into account that he's a flushing dog, not a retriever. So if you just think in simple terms, like look at paintings of dogs. If you see a painting of a Labrador Retriever, it's like sitting next to a hunter, looking up at him, maybe holding a duck or a goose. Okay, if you see a picture of a Springer Spaniel, they're out in front of a hunter, right? So the hunter is getting out of the truck and the dog is out in front of the hunter. So these dogs are bred to move out in front and the handler follow. They're flushing dogs, so when they move out in front, they move in a zigzag pattern. Okay, so if you get one of these dogs, even a show variety, okay, they still have some of that hunting instinct, and getting them to stay close when they're off the leash, getting them to walk politely on a leash without pulling and zigzagging, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. So when we get a dog like this at the kennel, I know during the formative stages of training, I'm going to have to be a little bit quicker with my reward rate, right? So you'll notice with the lab, maybe I got through the whole course with, I don't know, 2 or 3 treats, easy. You'll notice with this guy, I'm gonna be using quite a few more treats to try to keep him focused. And it's not that I'm gonna be stuck using the treats forever. I mean, it just takes however many repetitions it takes to get a dog in the habit of behaving a certain way. But it's gonna take me about twice as many treats per session for about twice as long to get the same results out of a 19-week-old English Springer Spaniel as it does a 19-week-old English Labrador Retriever on average. Okay, now I know that some of you guys are going to get in the comment section and tell me you had different experiences. Okay, just remember that exceptions prove the rules. Very nice. Easy. Oh, that's a good dog. So everything's pretty similar here. The only thing that's different is the reinforcement schedule. Very nice. These dogs are similar in terms of athleticism. They're similar in terms of temperament. They're similar in terms of energy output, energy endurance, and recharge rate. Okay. This one, if you'll notice, thinks he's a little bit more special, and that's a thing I always make fun of with the English chubbies. It's kind of like they're aristocrats of the dog world. Like if we go out running on the side-by-side, they want to ride in the side-by-side. If I'm playing fetch with the field-bred labs, they kind of watch, like look what the peasants are doing, okay? So they love being the center of attention. And if you'll notice, this dog keeps trying to like interject himself into this dog's schoolwork, which is okay, because they're young, and I really appreciate anybody trying to do work, but I got to get this guy through his routine. Very nice. One of the things that you'll notice with both the show varieties of both of these dogs is that it takes a little longer to get them to where they have good body awareness, good proprioception. Because remember, they're just, when you're breeding show dogs, the way they're judged is on a flat surface, how they move on a flat surface. So there's nothing in the breeding criteria that is dependent on how dogs do in low traction or off camber situations. Like that's why we spend so much time like working on our rubble pile, working on getting in and out of the canoe and the kayak and the side-by-side and the ATV. I got my tent set up over there because it's getting to be camping weather. But I really spend a lot of time making sure that the dogs can develop the proper body awareness because I want them to be confident and I want them to be able to be completely integrated into their owners' lifestyles. And it definitely takes longer with the show variety dogs. One of the reasons it takes longer is, like I was saying, there's nothing in the breeding criteria for these type of dogs that take into account how they do in a wide range of physical conditions, but also because the thing that makes them a good house dog, which is they have moderate energy expenditure levels and moderate endurance levels, makes it a little hard to get all the repetitions you need to get during the day. And ultimately, dog training is built on successful repetitions. That's why a lot of people argue over the best way to train a dog. It's because a lot of ways to influence a dog works as long as you're consistent and persistent. What we're trying to do is find something that you can't mess up, right? I mean, how are you going to mess up exercising your dog and going out and looking for the good in them and having big adventures with them? Very nice. Come on, get out of the way, Ham. Very nice, easy. Oh, you a good dog. Okay. So now, these two dogs are very similar from our perspective. We look at both of these kind of dogs as profits, so we really like it. People call us with these kind of dogs. So if you have one of these dogs, hey, holler at us and send one over. Now I'll go get another dog, and you have two show-bred dogs. One's a flushing dog, and one is kind of a retriever. Now let's compare the rest of these dogs to the way that I was able to negotiate the basic schoolwork or formal work with Theo and Oliver. Okay, so I went in and got Moose. Now Moose is a very interesting dog. He and Oliver and Theo, when they get up in the morning, I mean, they just go crazy playing and having a good time. Okay, the difference between Moose and these two dogs is that Moose is off the charts into everything, okay? So Moose is a cross between an Irish setter and a golden retriever, okay? Now when you're doing outcrosses, you never know exactly, which genetics are going to be dominant at any given developmental stage, and so this is pretty interesting. You have a golden retriever, which is a dog bred to do a complex job in conjunction with a handler, bred with an Irish setter, which is a dog that's bred to move away from a handler. Okay, in other words, one dog's bred to go get stuff and bring it back to the handler. The other dog is bred to move away, and the handler follows them. Okay, so it's a completely different mindset from the dog's perspective. Think about it like from a retriever's perspective. They wake up in the morning saying, hey, what can I do for you, boss? A bird dog wakes up in the morning saying, hey, I'm going to go do something. You should follow me around till I find something interesting. And those are just completely polar opposite, worldviews, okay? And so I have to understand that when I go to trying to influence in a dog like this. Now, another thing that you get out of some field-bred golden retrievers and Irish setters is extremely high energy output, extremely high endurance, and extremely quick recharge rates, okay? So Moose starts out the same as Theo and Oliver in the morning. They come out, they're going crazy, right? But very quickly, Theo and Oliver, they go lay down, okay? This dog, I had to run him with my dogs on the motorcycle just to get him to be able to make this video. Otherwise, he would have just been bouncing up and down off of all of these obstacles. So it's important to understand the complex interplay between energy regulation and proper performance when you're doing your formal obedience training, okay? Minus a good pre-fatiguing session with this dog, I can't hardly get him to focus long enough to be able to talk to you and make this video. Okay, so it's not that I can't get him to be calm and attentive and polite. It's that I can't get him to be calm, attentive, and polite minus a pre-fatiguing session. Even if I go really heavy on my reward schedule, like if I'm just clicking and clicking and clicking and treating and treating and treating, which kind of makes it hard to, for you guys to focus on what I'm saying, it's still not enough. Okay, so with this guy, these guys, they were just kind of laying around in the air conditioner. We come out and they did pretty good. This guy, before I could get him on the course, had to fire up my motorcycle, take the mentor dogs, go out to the pre-adventure area and do 3 or 4 laps. Okay, now after 3 or 4 laps in the pre-adventure area, you see that he is about where Theo and Oliver are after just walking the course a couple of times. So many times people argue about how to train a dog as far as the particular technique they're using to attempt to influence the dog, whether they're using food work or some type of traditional training. But very rarely do people take the time to talk to you about how to properly set up the dog for success with that given technique. If you're going to do, ration control, if you're going to do food work protocols, okay, you can't be successful with that without understanding how important it is to help your dog regulate its energy level in such a way that it can be successful. Okay? Think about it like any kid at school. If you have a real athletic, real energetic kid, super inquisitive mind, and you don't, ever let him go to recess. You don't ever let him, like have physical education class. Well, then he's very likely to have trouble doing well in a classroom where he just has to sit around and be bored and listen to some teacher that's not that exciting. Okay, that's kind of how this dog is. Like with this dog here, he wants to be moving. He wants to be doing stuff all the time. And if I don't get him out and make him, run a little bit of that edge off of him, then this is what I get. All I want him to do is put his feet on those blocks and watch. He just fidgety, And these other two puppies, you watched me do this little drill where I kind of turn around. Okay, I have to be a lot more patient with this guy. If I can get these hams out of the way, go over there. I have to be a lot more patient with this guy because he just doesn't really see the point of it. So he hops on the blocks and off of the blocks and on the tables and off of the tables and on the log and off the log, and he just thinks it's all great fun. So I have to go out and I have to exercise him. Now, if I exercise him too much, he has trouble focusing. If I don't exercise him enough, he has trouble focusing. He's just a kind of dog that has trouble focusing, and that's not truly a reflection of his intelligence. That's just a fact that he's got a low threshold at which he becomes interested in other things, which makes sense for the fact that, given the fact that he's half Irish setter. Okay? Would you want a bird dog that got out of the truck and looked at you and said, "Hey, I wonder if there's any birds over there. You ought to go find them"? No. When you have a bird dog, you want him to get out of the truck and be excited about running off and finding interesting things. So if you have a dog that's a bird dog or a bird dog cross, you have to take that into account when you're establishing your training protocols. You also have to take into account the fact that, they're going to move a little bit differently than some of the other dogs. And this is the kind of problem we have here all the time, right? Again, you get dogs that are bred to do a job on kind of a flat plane. They're not always the most sure-footed dogs. We get bird dogs out here all the time, and almost to a dog, they struggle with the proprioception exercises. Isn't that funny? Now I know you bird dog people are gonna be mad at me. I'm just telling you the truth though. I ain't got any reason to lie. Very good. You're a very good dog. Up, up, up. See how he just runs into stuff? But he's funny and he's got a great attitude and he's fun to work. And now the great thing about Moose is, although he struggles a little bit with his formal learning sessions, I can get more sessions per day because his energy output level's higher, his endurance rate is higher, and his recharge rates, the naps he needs to take to recharge his batteries, it's a lot shorter. Okay, all right, very nice. Okay, watch out, watch out. Okay, so get him over here so you can have a nice little side look of him. He's a good looking dog. Wait. I like, I think that this throwing a little bit of Irish setter into these golden retrievers, that's doing a good job of getting that dark, coloring back, but also helps, make them a little bit more fine-boned. And for me, kind of a little bit of a more skinny, rangy dog is better for me when I'm adventuring. Now, if I'm just, sitting around the kennel and I got kids coming out, I like these little blocky, chubby dogs. I call them English chubbies. They're really nice because they don't have too much energy. But if I'm out at my farm, these skinny, rangy dogs, that's what I'm taking. All right, let me go see what else I can find. All right, now we're going to get into the portion of video where I present some dogs of somewhat questionable heritage, okay? So this is Poppy. Now when Poppy's owners contacted me, they told me they had rescued a dog and it was a yellow Labrador Retriever. Okay, let me get this dog up on this table, okay? And so we can take a look at her. Now, you guys think that's a Labrador Retriever? Go on, Theo. Very nice. All right, as a matter of fact, I'd be anxious to hear what you guys think this dog is. Okay, I'll see if I can get her head around here as cameraman so you can see her. Very nice. Now you notice how earlier I was saying I like dogs that are kind of rangy. Okay, this dog, she's the queen of rangy, right? She's super strong, she's super fast, she's super agile, she has a high endurance rate, she recharges very quickly. Okay, and she's very pattern cognizant, so it doesn't really take very long to teach her a new skill, and it doesn't take long for her to master it. Okay, now what does take a little while is to get her to want to do things at your pace. She wants to come out here and rush through all of the formal obedience exercises and get right to playing. And when she plays very rough. Okay, she wrestles the other dogs, she bites them, she takes things away from them, and if you try to restrict her activity, she has a little bit of a go to pieces and makes a lot of noise. Okay, now she's super sweet. I mean, when you're fooling with her, she'll get right up in your lap and love on you. She's a very good dog. Okay. Babe, but she gets a little bit aggravated, and you know about it, right? So if another dog comes over and she's in the mood to play, then she plays really well. And if she's not in the mood to play, all of a sudden you hear, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," and you look over and Poppy's on top of them, right? Okay, so, you know, think about that and then post in the comment section below what mix of dogs you think makes up Poppy. So when I go to running my system with Poppy, what's different about her than, say, Moose or Theo or Oliver? Well, I mean, obviously the first thing that's different is her threshold at which she gets a little bit aggravated with other dogs and is willing to engage in, you know, like threat displays or violence is quite a bit lower, okay? So I have to think about that when she gets big, because she's already very strong at this age and has a giant physical advantage on the other dogs. There's not one dog here that can out-wrestle her, not one puppy here that can out-wrestle her. You know, if she gets into any kind of playing altercation with any of the puppies here, she ends up on top, okay? And that's fun to watch as long as she's in a good mood, but when she's in a bad mood, you know, it can become an issue. And where that issue would pop up is in the mid-adolescent and post-adolescent phases, where the dogs get a little less tolerant of other dogs and have a little bit more of a tendency to compete using threat displays or possibly violence. Okay, so we got to really watch. So now a lot of times, when you're working with a dog like this, you have to think, all right, well, like she got some good tendencies and some bad tendencies. What do I work on more? Do I try to set up situations where she can, you know, like be a little bit on the not super social side, or do I build on what she does well? And that's a philosophical issue, right? That's what I was telling you earlier. That's beer talk in the dog training business. Like, what's the best way to do stuff? If a dog's here, what we're going to do is we are going to consistently try to build on what they do well. Okay, that's always going to be my primary, you know, my primary focus is to build on helping them be calm, attentive, polite, confident, patient, those kinds of things. So like when you're watching this, for some people, this can be kind of frustrating in that I'm training these dogs all together, and the one that's on the leash sometimes is getting bullied a little bit by the others, or getting knocked out of position, or maybe losing an opportunity to be reinforced. But what I'm trying to teach Poppy right off the bat is that there's going to be a lot of times in her life where she maybe is a little bit aggravated by another dog, and there's no reason to have a go to pieces, okay? So I get her up here, and if one of these hammy show dogs gets in her way, okay, like I'm making her understand that she's not losing access to reinforcement, right? If she might lose this particular reinforcement, okay, but there's always another one on the way. And when it comes to like issues of possible resource guarding in the mid-adolescent or post-adolescent phases, it's really about what the dogs expect. If the dogs see the world in a zero-sum game, they think every time another dog gets something, that's something they'll never get, okay? I try to present it a little bit differently. I try to say, just because somebody else got something, it doesn't mean you're not going to get something awesome. And the more polite you are and the more accepting you are as the puppy of understanding that everybody gets treats, everybody gets rewards, and you're not losing anything, then I'll reach in my pocket every so often and give them a super high value reward. So Poppy's out here and she's doing some work, and to a large degree, she's getting some just kind of regular bland, rewards. But every so often, if I see like maybe one of the dogs, you know, kind of body check her or do something that would aggravate her normally, if she's a little bit more like reserved in her response, then I reach in my pocket and I give her a big hunk of steak. Very nice. Oh my gosh, you're a good dog. Now watch this. Now look at the difference between Poppy. I'm gonna do that again as a matter of fact, cameraman. Look at the difference between, say, Poppy and these other dogs. Like, see how she just hops up there? Let me see. Come over this way a little bit. I wanna show them how she just hops right up there. So now, hop up, hop. Do you see how much better her natural body awareness is than the other dogs? I mean, it's literally leagues better, okay? She's stronger, she's faster, she's more agile, and she's more like excited about the opportunity to get to engage in this kind of challenge. Very nice. Now that's actually big progress right there. We have a helicopter that flies power lines around here, and now Poppy has a very low threshold at which she gets suspicious, and every other time that that helicopter has flown by, she's had a little bit of a kind of an alert bark response where she would kind of go into this vocalization pattern, and I had a really hard time bringing her out of it. So that was big progress. Okay, so one more time, just so we can compare and contrast. Oh, very nice, very nice. Look at that. Look how much better. So when you're thinking about training your dog and you've chosen a system, understand that comparisons between dogs that are trained in that same system, they're not one-for-one comparisons. Every dog's an individual, every handler's an individual. Some dogs are more talented at the exercises, some trainers are more talented at the exercises. A good trainer can make a bad technique look good, to be honest with you. Come on, nerd. Very nice. Oh, now see, like right there, the other dogs, they stayed up there and they were willing to kind of just wait in line. Not Poppy. She said, I'll just jump right off the side. Come on, nerd. Very good. Okay, she kind of pulling on the leash there. It's all pretty normal stuff. But what I'm really happy with Poppy about right now is the fact that she is in the middle of these dogs and she's not snipping or snapping or growling at any of them in an effort to guard this, what she considers a scarce resource in my vest. So that's big progress for her. Also, it's big progress that she didn't bark at the helicopter. All right, I'll go in and get another dog of somewhat questionable heritage. All right, guys, meet Finley. Finley's an awesome dog. You know, in the dog business, first impressions are often very indicative of a dog's personality. I mean, you can just kind of look at Finley and tell that he has a friendly, outgoing disposition, okay? But now here's the other thing you can tell about Finley is that if you don't keep his hair cut short, it's a lot of work. So whenever like we're out and we're thinking about how we're going to allocate our time that day for our training sessions, I want you to understand that if you have a time and exercise intensive system like mine, well, you can't just ask me, hey, Stonnie, how long does it take to do X? Because X has variables, and one of the variables is like these kind of coats, right? So whenever I take Finley out back, I have to carry a slicker brush with me, and before we come back, I've got to kind of clean him up because he gets all these little stick tights and stuff in him, and that adds a lot of time to my day. Well, every minute that's spent, cleaning stick tights out of Finley's coat is a minute that I can't be implementing my system. Now, luckily around here, I got a lot of help and a lot of time, but at your house, that's something to think about. So if you're going to get a dog that has a coat that requires maintenance, make sure that you account for that maintenance time in your time allocation for your training sessions. Okay, it's very, very important. Now, when you start with a little bit older dog, it's always a lot of trouble because these dogs already have a way of looking at the world and a way of interacting with the people in their household and their neighborhood. So what I see out of these doodles a lot, and you can go back to other videos I have on doodles, is that people buy them maybe because they look like teddy bears and maybe because they think that they're not going to shed and because they're friendly and outgoing, but they grossly underestimate the time that they need to be exercised to get proper energy regulation. And so what you end up with is a cute dog, but also a smart, athletic, inquisitive dog that's very bored, and so they have a tendency to get into stuff in the household that they're not supposed to get into. And since they crave attention, if you don't do good basic obedience and socialization with them when they're young, then they figure out their own ways to get attention, which normally ends up being negative attention-seeking patterns. So a dog like Finley, if I get when I get an email, it's always the same thing. They're jumping, they're barking, they're tearing stuff up in the house, they're pulling on the leash, they're going crazy with other dogs in their neighborhood and kids. Okay? That's just a result of them having unmet needs. If you buy a smart, athletic dog that loves people, well then if you don't provide them with an outlet for those natural urges and tendencies, then you're going to create a backlog and you're going to have energy going in a lot of places that you don't want it to go. But as far as being a good dog, Finley's a pretty good dog. He's got a short attention span because I'm trying to teach him basic obedience at the natural boundary testing of life. The way basic obedience should be taught is, like 8 to 24 weeks. That's when you introduce basic obedience, and that's when you master it. And then somewhere around 28 or 32 weeks, you'll start to see a dog enter kind of a natural boundary testing phase, and that's where you're just trying to maintain what you had started in the 8 to 24 week range. Come on, nerd. Very nice. If you wait and start trying to influence them at 7 or 8 months, well, then what you're really doing is you're doing reactive dog training, and you're gonna be emailing people like me, and you're gonna be saying, hey, Stonnie, what do I do when my dog jumps up? What do I do when my dog won't come to me? What do I do when the dog is chewing up the couch? And I'm going to tell you, well, you're just going to have to do a lot of work. Is what you're going to have to do, But a lot of dog training, especially traditional dog training, the advice was to kind of wait till the dogs were more physically mature. The reason that advice was given is because almost all of the techniques were compulsive techniques, and the dog needed to be physically mature enough to take the corrections. Okay, so in my opinion, I like prevention rather than cure. I do not like emails, and I generally won't email people back that call me asking for a bunch of reactive solutions to problems. I'm a proactive guy. My advice is always going to be the same. Get out and exercise your dog, get your energy regulation squared away, start engaging in positive reinforcement activities that create the kind of habits that you would like to establish. Manage the environment so that your dog doesn't have a chance to consistently fail, And then, in the very end, if we get all that going in the right direction, then yeah, we whisper in their ear and tell them some things are just off limits because we said so, They're not allowed to do anything dangerous, destructive, or rude. But my idea is always, let's see if we can't get them moving in the right direction first. Now, you see how this dog in the mid-adolescent period, he's got to this edge of the kayak, and he's having trouble turning around, okay? That's because proprioception, proper proprioception has to be developed when dogs are young. This idea that you can go out with a dog and make up for what you didn't do between 8 and 16 weeks or 16 and 24 weeks, that's a lie. Guys, do not fail to exercise your puppies when they're young, because if you do, you are robbing them of their full potential. No dog can realize its full physical potential if it's not properly exposed to different environments between 8 and 24 weeks. Okay, I do this every day. There's nobody on the internet that has more long-form videos of dogs exercising in a wider range of physical conditions than I do. Okay, and I'm here to tell you that exercise does not cause problems, exercise reveals problems. This dog, with some exercise and good basic obedience and socialization as a puppy, would have never had to come here during the mid-adolescent period. Very nice. On a labor investment, calculation, this dog in the mid-adolescent period takes me more time to train than any 2 of these other puppies, okay? Just because they waited so long. And he's a nice dog. I mean, he's a great dog. I love him to death. But everything takes longer. And then when you have to factor in that I have to brush him constantly, and I have to look at his coat and pick out sticks and burrs, okay, this kind of dog for us at the kennel, it's a lot of extra work. All right, now I'm going to go in and I'm going to get 2 dogs that illustrate what for us is we have the hardest time implementing our system with. All right, guys, meet Bocce. Bocce is what I refer to as an almost poodle. And the reason I call him an almost poodle is because if you go back 4 generations in his pedigree, he has 1 golden retriever. And it's not that I'm against that. I think outcrosses are good every once in a while. It adds a little bit of genetic vitality, as they say. Poodles, people like to pretend that back when poodles were really popular that there weren't any issues with them. Well, there's a reason they used to be really popular and then they got to be not quite so popular. Okay, and the reason they got to be not quite so popular is because a lot of them kind of had kind of a sharp temperament. In other words, they were very smart, very pattern cognizant, but when it came to being like accepting of new and novel experiences, they weren't really about that, and they developed a pretty well-deserved reputation for snipping and snapping at people. Okay. Now, just a second ago, you heard Poppy like kind of vocalize a little bit. That's because, show them what's going on over there, cameraman. Poppy has a stick, and Moose came over there to maybe try to play with the stick. Now, Poppy ran him off, and if he keeps bothering her, she's going to jump on top of him and hold him down on the ground. And so I might have to leave what I'm doing and go over there and deal with that, but hopefully I won't. I just wanted to show you that because earlier I had mentioned about how Poppy has a really low threshold at which she's willing to engage in threat displays and possibly violence. Okay. Now, from Poppy's point of view, like, you know, she says, well, that dog shouldn't be bothering me. And I understand. That's perfectly fine with me. But you got to understand, the suburbs ain't where Uncle Stonnie lives. And so any least little bit of dog conflict in the suburbs, man, it makes it a really uncomfortable situation. Now, you'll notice that all the other dogs, like when I put them up on the table and stuff, they were looking at me. They stayed up on the table getting treats. Maybe they kind of jumped around looking to do something. Bocce got off the table, and he doesn't at all look like he's thinking, hey, Stonnie, let's do something together. Okay. Well, part of that is because he's an adult poodle, you know, but a whole lot of that is just because Bocce didn't have the proper basic obedience and socialization during the early formative stages. Okay. And so with a dog like Bocce, our normal system of coming out here and giving rewards, it's only marginally effective because he's not in a stage of life where he really needs calories. I mean, he's fully grown. So like if I offer him just a regular piece of dog food, sometimes he'll take it. A lot of times he just spits it out, you know. So the food work doesn't really provide a lot of value for him. If I go to petting and praising on him, you know, like I go to try to petting him and loving on him, he ain't really about all that. You know what I'm saying? You know how some people love to be touched and hugged and some people don't? He's on the don't really pet me and hug me, you know, side of the thing. So if the food work is not that valuable and the petting and praise is not all that valuable, then, you know, how do I still run my same system? I run my same system because these poodles are very pattern cognizant. And even without great options for motivating them, if you can just consistently show them the same routine, they learn it very quickly. So what we try to do is we try to come out here and we make them do this routine and then we give them freedom. Okay, so I know the food work's not going to be super valuable to him. I know my petting and praise and approval is not going to be super valuable to him. Okay, but what is going to be valuable to him is to get done with this and to get to go on about his business. Okay, so every day I come out here and I use the freedom as the positive reinforcement in this particular situation. So in the beginning stages, I would make him do one obstacle and then we would let him off work. And then I would make him do 2 obstacles and we would let him off work. And then 3, and then 4, then 5. And now we're pretty much to the point to where we can get them through the whole course, okay? But it takes a little bit of extra help. Like see here where, even though he's been on this slide a bunch of times, because of the developmental stage that he's in, he has kind of a set way of looking at environmental impediments, and it's hard for him to overcome that. That's why I tell you, don't let people convince you not to exercise your young dogs, because if you wait to learn how to use a body, then it's harder. I mean, just think about any sport. Imagine if you were a grown-up and you tried to learn gymnastics, or you were a grown-up and you tried to learn how to play football. It would be basically impossible. Dogs need to be physically and mentally challenged from the first day that you get them. All right, let's see if we can get him through this tunnel. Now, I don't know if I can get him through this tunnel. We'll see. But what we've been having to do is literally, I like have to get in the tunnel and go with them and kind of make him come. Come on, you can do it, Bocce. Very nice. And I don't know if you'll be able to see that on the camera, but as he goes to go in there, those other dogs being in there, it makes him kind of like back up a little bit. Remember I told you, like with the poodles, they don't always like unsolicited contact, and that's from people or from dogs. So I'm gonna maybe give it one more try here. Come on, you can do it. And if I don't get it, I'll just walk around. Oh, wow, very good. That's a very good dog. And so that's big progress for him. Not only did he go through the tunnel, even though these other puppies were here, he took a reward, which is awesome, very nice. Now notice when I'm going down or up something, I take my left hand and I move it over to his collar. That's because when we first started all this, he would have such a overreaction to the obstacles that he would just jump off, and I was afraid that he would hurt himself. So I switched the leash over here to my left hand if I need to control his body and keep him from hurting himself. Now see something simple like just getting the dog's feet up on this block so I can like turn. From this dog's perspective, like this is very difficult. because he's already grown. He's already walked on sidewalks and on the carpet and on the tile and on flat surfaces so much of his life that he just never got to thinking it was a good idea to work on surfaces of differential traction levels or height differences. Very nice. Watch out, nerd. Nope, sit. Good. Stay there. Hop. Now, when Bocce first got here, one of the first things we did was cut the hair out of his eyes, because the reason he's here is he's kind of a little bit reactive. He was kind of a little bit of a bully with small dogs in his household, and he could be a little bit aggressive with strangers in the house. And to a dog, with these doodles and poodles, almost always the dogs that are showing those kind of misbehaviors, okay, the owners go too long in between the groomings and the hair grows over their eyes. And when the hair grows over their eyes, they have trouble. They have trouble recognizing people. They have trouble recognizing posture. They have trouble categorizing things that are coming at them from angles, linear movement. It can be very frustrating to a dog. Come on, hop up. So we always try to take the low-hanging fruit first. Very first thing I ever look at if I have a dog whose hair has a tendency to grow over the eyes is I look at the hair. And almost to a dog, and I've been doing this for a long time, the owners go too long in between the groomers, and they don't do sanitary grooming in between their big grooming sessions. Come on. Now looky here. You see where all the other dogs jumped right up on the rubble pile. And he just thinks that's the worst idea in the world. And what I can do with the other dogs, if they're kind of shying away from the rubble pile, I can just reach in my pocket and I can say, hey, look, I've got a treat. If you climb up here on these rocks and stuff, I'll give you a treat. Okay? But the treat means less to the adult dogs. Not every adult dog. I know you're going to get in the comment section. Some dogs just live to eat. But most dogs, they don't live to eat. They eat to live. So if I go, hey, if you'll jump up on those rocks, then I'll give you that treat. And he's like, it ain't that important, boss. So then I've got to kind of come back here, and we got to go a little bit old-fashioned, and I got to kind of try to, reach in here and encourage him physically and explain to him that these things that we're doing, they're not really optional. And in the beginning stages, the dogs, they kind of are unhappy about having to do it. They feel like I'm being unfair to them. But I keep at it because I know in the end that they're going to be super happy, because they're going to be much more competent in terms of dealing with real life, and they're going to be able to go out and have a lot more experiences. Sometimes with dogs, you have to do something that's uncomfortable in the short run in order to guarantee that the dog's going to get to do something more comfortable in the long run. Very nice. And like I said, this being a poodle, I can get away with this because poodles learn very well via rote repetition. The type of dogs that are popular have a big influence on the type of training methodologies that are popular. In the 70s and early 80s, poodles and German shepherds were very popular. Both breeds learned very well via rote repetition. Nowadays, you have a lot of border collies and Malinois and other really high-strung, high prey drive dogs, and they train a lot better when you're presenting them with obvious external motivation. Balls, food, lots of love and attention, things like that, tugs. Okay, but these dogs, kind of old-fashioned dogs. German shepherds, I've got one in there. I'll make a video with him this week. Old-fashioned dog. You just get them out, say, look, this is what's expected. Don't give them any options not to do it, and the next thing you know, they do it pretty well. Very nice. Now, they don't necessarily prance around like a border collie or a Malinois or a Dutch shepherd of some other type, but they're very reliable dogs. Okay, now I'm going to go get Goose. Goose is Bocce's brother, and Goose is a little bit tougher dog to fool with, and I'll talk about how they're a little bit different. All right, guys, this is Goose. Goose is also an Almost Poodle. And now Goose is a little bit interesting because, remember I was talking to you about thresholds. This dog's threshold at which he will engage in a threat display or possibly violence is quite a bit lower than Bocce's from our experience. Now, what's weird is sometimes, like when people bring us pairs of dogs, the behavior that they display with us in a new environment is not exactly the same thing as the behavior they display in their home environment. But I like to think of like the behavior they display in the new environment as being more indicative of their true personality, because there's less effect on environmental factors. So Goose, when we first started trying to get him to buy into this system, he's very resistant. Now he's an easy dog to have around. Like I can let him out and like as long as nobody's bothering him, he just kind of goes off and he does his own thing. But what we run into the first little bit he was here is anybody that was walking down the hill, he would really like go into a big threat display, big time alert barking, And then if there were any kids around, they would make him super nervous. And he would like be wary of them, run around them, bark at them, It snapped at my daughter. Okay, and so we like to see how a dog's going to be, but I already knew a large percentage of why they were doing that was because they couldn't see. It had been a long time since they had been groomed, and all of this hair had grown in front of Goose's eyes. Same thing with Bocce, right? And so I just kind of took my scissors and I know it's a hack job, but I cut around their eyes so that they could see. Bam, immediate improvement. Okay, and so we're having a lot better day to day than we were having when he first got here and the hair was in his eyes. Okay, now where we struggle with Goose is again the fact that I'd ask him to do something and I'd say, hey look, I've got a treat, will you do it for a treat? And he's like, dude, I didn't even eat all my breakfast, I don't want a treat. I'd be okay, all right, so then let's just go old school and you're gonna have to do it because I said so. And so I'd bring him over here and I would kind of put him by this obstacle, and all I'm saying is you can't go that way, you can't go backwards, and you can't go this way. You have to negotiate the obstacle if you want to make progress, and progress is the only way that you're going to get to go play with your brother and roam around, do your own thing. And when I would get to about right there, he would have a go to pieces. He would try to go to the left, he would try to go to the right, he would try to go backwards. He would do anything except what it was that I wanted him to do. And guys, if you get into it with a real like sensitive, high emotional IQ dog like a poodle, and you make it a force battle, then you're gonna end up with a dog that withdraws from you and refuses to interact with you on a voluntary basis. So yes, you can kind of force them to do things, but man, the price you pay really sets you back in terms of your timeline of your training expectations. So what I have to do when he has his go to pieces is I have to be like emotionally detached, right? And you might see it when we come over here to this tire, because he really thinks of that tire as a hole of death, right? Okay, but I think we've got it licked now. But I would have to come over here by this tire and kind of walk up here. Oh, very nice. Well, he's not going to do it, of course. And I would, I would just present that tire as the only way forward. He would go to the left, he would go to the right, he would go back, then he would get kind of aggravated with me, and I'm just standing there stone-faced, And so now I have him where he's going through the tire, but let me show you what I'm talking about, because he's still jumping over the slide here. So we'll come through here, and I'll show you about being emotionally detached. I need him, just for safety reasons, to take every step on this course, okay? So I'm not battling with him, I'm not like judging him, I'm just saying, dude, we're not gonna be done with this obstacle until you take every step. So I'm gonna kind of reach up here where I can like guide him a little bit. Come on, nerd. I'm gonna put my hand under his flanks like this so he can't jump off, and then I'm gonna walk him. Look, see how he's resistant? And the reason, this is such a silly thing, but the reason that he doesn't want to have his feet right there is usually there's a little bit of water down there, right? It's been raining lately, and so he didn't like having his feet in the water. And just a couple of experiences. Remember I told you, like poodles are very pattern cognizant dogs, so you can teach them with rote repetition, but at the same time, if they learn a bad lesson, then they just learn a bad lesson, and it sticks just as well as the good lessons. And so he learned that he didn't want his feet in that water, and not everybody that's out here walking dogs will hold them to the same standard as me, and it didn't take him but a couple of repetitions to get in the habit of half-stepping and jumping off of the slide, okay? And you might think, well, Stonnie, what's the big deal? Well, here's the big deal, because we're going from the slide up to these railroad ties, and these railroad ties are high up off the ground. And so you see him wanting to go that direction, okay? Now this is important because if he's somewhere, like his owners live in Tennessee by a nice hiking area, if he's somewhere on a bluff and he hops up on a log and gets a little bit nervous and takes a misstep or hops off because something happens, he could fall all the way off a bluff and he could break a bone or worse, you know. So you can't, you know, you always have to address the little things, because if you don't address the little things, they most certainly will turn into big things. Same thing on the way down here. Okay, now we had the same trouble with Goose going through the tunnel as Bocce. I've kind of got him where he'll go through the tunnel, but sometimes now he goes in the tunnel and he hides. Go through there. So if he comes through here, I'm gonna look like a genius. Come on, nerds. Come on, you can do it. Oh, wow. Yeah, that's right, I'm a genius. Very nice. Okay, all the way down, very good. Come on, nerd. Come on, come on. You're a good dog. Now, you see how, like, almost every step of the way, he's shooting off and pulling on the leash more than the other dogs? That's because, like, these incremental rewards that I have, like we think of rewards in terms of little to big, like some food rewards, some petting and praise, then the big reward of getting off work. He doesn't care about the incremental ones. He just wants to off work. So what I get stuck doing is I have to kind of keep him on this leash. I kind of have to keep him on this leash until he leaves me some slack in the leash, and then I let him off. And so again, when you start to like thinking about designing your training sessions, okay, depending on the method that you use, right? Like for me, I'm not letting him off work. Oh my gosh, sit down, nerds. I'm not letting him off work until I get some compliance. Okay, he's got to be calm, attentive, and polite. And so sometimes I'll get out here and what should be just a 20 or 30 minute leash session can turn into an hour leash session because I am not giving in. And I'm not getting into an emotional battle where I try to correct a poodle, because then it's going to be a me versus him thing and he's going to withdraw from me. So I've just got to kind of be detached and say, this is the way it's going to be. You can do whatever you're going to do, but your behavior is not affecting me other than if you're calm, attentive, and polite. That's the only way to get off the leash. Very nice. You'll see there when I made him sit, that's an old-fashioned technique called a cupping technique, where I cupped his rear end and that forced him to sit. That's something that you don't see very much anymore because most professional dog trainers are using dogs that are very easy to motivate with food or toys. Now, the advantage of that is those dogs look very good in the short run, okay, but you're kind of stuck to a large degree having those external motivators available in order to influence your dog even when they're adults. That's why you see so many dog trainers, demo dogs, the dog trainers always have a ball with them, or they always have a tug, or they always have some food. Poodles and German Shepherds, you don't need that. Now look at this body, this tension. Okay, from his point of view, there's no reason to be up on this rubble pile. It doesn't make any sense, and he can't see any reason to do it. So even if I say, hey, look, here's a big treat, come over here and get this treat, he's like, no, I don't care. So again, kind of like I treat him like he's from Missouri. I just show him that he has to do it. I'll switch my hands around here. Hand goes under the flank. Very nice. I get some resistance, but I'm an emotional, good rock. Very good, very good, very good. Okay, all right. Now we'll probably run into the same problem here, where he gets up here, kind of freezes up, pointed this way, because he doesn't know how to turn around. Remember when we were over there on the blocks, he couldn't turn around? So again, we get back to kind of the Missouri rule. I'm going to show him what he can do. And this is something that works very well with old-fashioned dogs. Very nice. Easy. All right, I'll put him up here. Good. So you guys can take a look at him. Very good. Good looking dog, very nice dog. Like I said, an Almost Poodle, just got a little bit of Golden Retriever in him. And he's going to end up doing fine. But he is not going to do as well as he would have done if we could have got him when he was 8 weeks old and started the program right. Okay, I'll show you, this video is getting long, so I'll show you one more dog and tell you something that you should never do. All right, guys, meet Lily. Lily is about a 9-month-old Labrador Retriever, and Lily is what I refer to as a best-worst dog. For a dog trainer, she's the best because she likes to eat, she likes to fetch, she loves attention, she has high energy output, she has high endurance, and she has a quick recharge rate. So those are all things that like sound great, right? Like if you were gonna go buy a dog, those are all qualities it seems like you would want. All right, but with those qualities oftentimes come some other qualities. One of those things, and you'll see this with a lot of field-bred Labrador Retrievers, is that they have a very low threshold at which they feel nervous and engage in alert barking, okay? And that happened with this dog. So remember I was telling you earlier with Poppy how like any little thing makes her nervous, and so she barks, right? And so we got to make sure that at her age we don't let that continue. Unfortunately, with Lily, she started doing the same thing when she was a puppy, and her owner tried to address it by placating her when she would engage in that alert barking. So like Lily learned to get attention and to feel validated in her suspicions because her owner would pet on her and make over her whenever she would have kind of a little bit of a go to pieces and bark and growl at people, okay? So what ended up happening is her owner likes to go hiking and likes to go camping and stuff. The owner thought, well, the kind of prevailing methodology for making sure dogs like going places is to get out and do a lot of stuff. But unfortunately, by the time she got out and started doing lots of stuff with Lily, Lily was already a big-time alert barker, okay? And so she would take her to campgrounds, and she would take her hiking, and she would take her out trying to socialize her, but those sessions would quickly degrade into Lily, making everybody else's day very uncomfortable, okay? So when you take a dog out to try to socialize them, but the dog has bad manners, what ends up happening is everybody starts to look at the dog in a negative light. Well, the dogs know when somebody's looking at them and they don't like them. Okay? This is why I always admonish you, do not let your dog grow up to be somebody that nobody likes, because the dogs know when people don't like them. And if you walked into an environment and maybe you made a little mistake, like a little bit of a barking, and then the people looked at you funny, then you would kind of feel validated in barking at them more because you think, well, they don't like me, so I don't like them. Okay? And that's a legit thing that happened to Lily. So not only was she a big alert barker, but the alert barker kept her from being able to really have fruitful training sessions. So instead of going out and really learning all the things that she could learn, she had to go out and, kind of have a session where it's barking, and then, the owner trying to soothe her, and then more barking, and then more soothing, and so nothing got done. Really the only thing that got done is the very worst elements of Lily's personality came to the forefront. People learned not to like Lily. Lily's owner got frustrated, and that frustration turned into anxiety, and so then when they would go to the next place, the anxiety from the owner transferred right down the leash into the dog, which made the alert barking worse. It's just, misbehavior has a tendency to spiral out of control, and that's what happened with this dog, okay? But same dog, different handler. Say she would have lived with me, or she would have lived with somebody that was familiar with those kind of high-strung personalities, well, she would have been perfect, and that would have never been an issue, okay? So sometimes you can have a dog that's the perfect dog. Like this dog is literally the perfect dog for my training methodology, okay? But since it got started so late, it's hard to implement those strategies, right? Because whenever we come out and we try to do stuff with her, and I have a lot of people around, she sometimes will have a little bit of a go to pieces and start barking at them, So how we combat that is, if we know we're going to have a lot of people out, we go do a pre-fatiguing session and we run off a little bit of that anxiety. Okay, always remember in life that if you have a nervous or reactive dog, there's an inverse relationship between exercise and anxiety. Lots of exercise, low anxiety. Not very much exercise, high anxiety, okay? And so then we'll take her out back, we'll run her on the motorcycle, we bring her back up, and then since she's very smart and she's very friendly and outgoing with people that she knows, we put her in a pattern where we throw these clickers on everybody that comes to visit, and that lets the dogs know that the people that are coming to visit are nice people, and it kind of makes the greeting process go a lot more quickly, all right? So with a best-worst dog, okay, you have to get started early so that you can build on the best aspects of their personality. Otherwise, inadvertently, you will end up, kind of building on the worst aspects of their personality. And they're going to be extreme versions of one of those two things. They're going to be like extremely good at obedience and extremely good at hiking and extremely good at fetching, right? Or they're going to be the polar opposite of that, and they're going to be hard to take out. Okay? It's up to you to make sure that you get started early, and if you don't get started early, then you're going to have to use energy regulation in order to control their anxiety, so that you can come in with a methodology that suits the dog's personality, even though it doesn't suit the dog's developmental stage. Okay, because food work and exercise protocols, wait there, food work and exercise protocols are very hard to implement for a normal person with a job in the mid-adolescent period, because the sessions can take so long. You know, for us, like say we're going to teach, we teach a 3-hour class in the morning. I take this dog out for an hour before people get here, okay, which is fine because I'm taking a bunch of other dogs out. But imagine how hard that would be if you lived in the suburbs. You got very few training opportunities, you didn't have a whole lot of hands to put leashes in, and you didn't have a lot of mentor dogs, okay? It's a lot of extra work. Okay, so what we're going to do with this dog is we're going to get her moving in the right direction by building on what she does well, so that when we give her back over to her handler is going to find it very easy to reintroduce her to those environments where she had the alert barking problems. Okay. All right, well, that's a whole bunch of dogs. I got to go because the cameraman has to get in carpool line to pick up my daughter. But if you have any questions about how I implement this system with these various types of dogs, or you have any observations, feel free to comment in the comment section below. I look forward to hearing what you have to say, and I will see you next week.